any music that's released is going to get a copyright infringement.
Okay, so we won't play that on the pre-show because that goes straight to YouTube. All right, let's just do let's chit chat on the pre-show like we normally do.
Brain
Talk about
freeze.
the sound check that you just did with David, and we'll just chit chat about the Dead. And then we'll move into
It's coming on right now.
And then we'll move into after David's opening. Perkins says thank you. Is Perkins on yet? Where is he?
He's just logging in right now.
Okay, it's 5:16. Should we be on the pre-show?
I can go live.
Well, we might as well as people are coming in.
How's my audio?
Give us a 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you sound good.
All right.
All right, you're live.
We are live on YouTube. This is the pre-show, the Rock and Talk Show. We're live on YouTube. If you are checking us out, we're excited. We have a good show tonight. We have the one and only David Gans, founder of the Grateful Dead Hour, author of Playing in the Band. Should be fun.
And also, since you're on YouTube, subscribe to our page and also like us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Want to have you part of the team.
Click those notifications while you're there.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you. Hello.
And
Hey,
Stephen Moss
how's it going?
made a phone call.
What's up, Kendrick?
During the pre-show.
What's up, man?
Yeah, man.
Got the little guy.
It's the same. It's the same. It's the same as. Yes, exactly.
There's all kinds of action happening on the
All right.
pre-show. We're all getting ready.
Bye.
Okay, Stephen Perkins, welcome.
Mark, I logged you onto my computer. I got to log you off. Call me back.
Yeah.
So Stephen, we're going
guys.
to.
Yes,
we're
I
gonna talk-
have a visitor here today. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little fuzzy.
It is?
Jesus.
Who's that?
It's me. I got to just this is the best pre-show you've ever seen. If you're wondering what the heck's going on, this is it right here.
David's phone ringing constantly. He's a very busy guy today. So we're going to talk on our pre-show about the Dead. And I think we're waiting for definitely not a dead ringer on your phone. There you go. It's alive. And then
I just turned on my do not disturb.
And I think we're just waiting on Mr. Scott Page.
Yeah, he said he's in LA traffic.
Oh, surprise, surprise. The traffic is back, right?
Pretty exciting. You know, that's a sign of life.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
If you do what the California natives do, you light something up, you turn on some Led Zeppelin, and the traffic doesn't bother you.
I'm not sure which causes me more stress, the LA traffic or the stress or thought of getting COVID when there was no LA traffic. It's like
I really enjoyed zero traffic on these streets, man. It was the most beautiful. Like I never thought I'd see empty ghost town LA like that. Wait, 9/11.
Yes.
My birthday is September 12th.
Mine's the next day, baby.
Yeah, and that was the scariest ghost town, LA.
yeah.
I was freaked out. I was freaked out this time too, but the beauty of seeing videos of people skateboarding down like off ramps in downtown LA was like whoa. And then wildlife came out.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Yes.
that was incredible. I was like, oh, is the earth healing? Is there a healing going on while we were freaked out and unnecessarily dying?
Well, I think all the animals thought that we humans were all gone. We were extinct.
Well, we see what will happen if we don't figure some things out.
Exactly. They were like, hey, finally, they're all gone. We can take over again.
Dude, the squirrels came out in Santa Monica like I was jogging and squirrels were partying. I got some video of
Right
that.
Back in 2 minutes.
Covered
Mike's here. Mike, come say hi.
Mikey G.
Hey, Mike.
Mike G, you got a hip hop name.
Hello.
Yeah.
Mike G with the double mask.
How's it going?
Mike, what up? Aren't you like you got to be done? Aren't you like 2 weeks out?
My head's so messed up, and just being around here, like Steven's wife and Eden they're not vaccinated, so still, I don't know what's going where.
Well,
Hey, Fauci.
I think we're still supposed to wear masks even though we're vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's like you can choose like your immediate family where you can go and have like your one house still, where it's like, I don't know.
I just heard Fauci say if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. That was the latest that I just heard.
Yeah, but then how do you? The way I could tell if somebody was vaccinated or wasn't vaccinated was they weren't wearing a mask.
Right. Or if you're around people you know and everyone's vaccinated,
Yeah,
then you know.
Yeah. But, from a distance, usually the people that wouldn't wear masks, those are the people that, wouldn't
You
wear
also saw the CDC came out and said that the whole thing of outdoors, everything, not one person they could find was infected.
Yeah, I
Came out with that just yesterday too. So
yeah.
it's a little wacky. I'm not so sure about all this.
Well, we're going to do, this is the pre-show. We have everybody
Pre-show,
here.
hey!
Pre-show. And we said, let's say it again. Everybody like us on YouTube, subscribe, like us on Facebook. It's really important to have our fans all together in one place. That's amazing. And as David said earlier, we have a great show. We're gonna talk on the pre-show about the Dead, one of the most iconic, amazing. Oh, bye, Mikey.
Bye, Mikey.
Love you, Mike.
Oh, look, he popped in there. Mr. Perk.
Hi. So,
Hi.
Mike, there's some Jane's Addiction shows have been contracted. We had to use blood. We cut each other's fingers up, use blood on the contracts. So if Mike wants to work for the band, I didn't tell him about the bloodletting yet.
Ah.
So you're gonna do some shows. You got some shows coming up?
We have shows. They all are so far. All of them are in September, and we announced just one so far. This one is in Philadelphia. There's 2 or 3 others coming, and really good bands. And one of the shows hasn't been confirmed. I was telling David Moss, if it happens, Larkin Poe is on the list.
Yeah, you told me too. That was amazing. I think it's going to be.
It hasn't been announced, so we'll keep that hush hush.
Yeah.
But
Well, we are live, just
You
so
are
you know.
live now. So let's go.
the bands are in the hat, but I won't tell you the festival.
Got it.
But things are good, man. Larkin Poe is one of our old guests from maybe 3 months ago, and David Moss brought him to our attention, and such unique takes on our favorite songs. And I was talking to Sheila earlier how wonderful it would be if they wrote originals or when we get to hear them. And if they had a band, a Nashville band that would, whatever flavor they like, upright bass and piano, or a big, a bass drum.
Well, they do write originals. They just released a whole record of all originals. So they mostly are an original band. They just do a ton of covers, and that's been their it's gotten them viral.
I have to get that record. I want to check it out.
Yeah, I want to hear that too. You're right, but I think they did get a lot of attention from doing those covers because they did them so uniquely. It was like amazing, and I kind of put them on the map. I think.
It's kind of like Wishbone did the Alice in Chains song. If you're going to do a song and you have a sound that's separate of the band that you're covering, embrace your sound. Use their song as a diving board or a canvas to blueprint, and then do your own thing. Just like Think, all our versions are quite muscular, a little more funky on the rhythm section. And, did you guys, we're not going to play, maybe we will a little later, but I sent you some videos of the good old private get-together in Beverly Hills.
We have a clip.
We
Yeah.
sounded good, man.
Yes.
We have a
Felt
clip.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna
It's just-
see those in the show.
The rhythm section and the guitar playing, you guys were dueling like angels. Saxophone felt like hearty heart soul, and the rhythm section was like a brick, thick as a brick. And then Will, he's like the salt and pepper with like gray hair. He's like
Will is so soulful. His voice
Yeah.
is just solid. Like he's just got soul.
He's a
And Derek Day, like what the hell, man? That dude's
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
that dude. Whatever
Yeah.
he's on, I want some.
And with me and Kenny
He's
Norwood,
okay.
and Scott, we're like the old reliable. You know what you're getting. You're getting
Double OGs.
that's what
Triple
you
OG.
get.
Same old lick. My same old lick. I've had it for a million years. It still works. I keep playing that same lick. It's never
I'm
ending.
still chasing.
We're 4 minutes away from launching the show, you guys. Who's excited about the Grateful Dead tonight? I mean, we get to talk
Yeah.
about the Grateful Dead. This is like I'm wearing my, I wore my lightning bolt in honor of our show tonight.
I was looking for Dead shirts and I couldn't find any, so I'm wearing my Venice.
Well, I've had to tell you guys, I've played with Bob Weir, I played with Phil Lesh, I played with both drummers, and I've also had a chance to play with Rob Wasserman, who's passed on. Earthquake!
What?
Earthquake.
Really?
No way.
Didn't reach my place yet.
That was
Not
good.
here.
It didn't reach Portland.
Oh, that was, did it feel like it was an earthquake?
Close the door.
There's a semi going by.
What? Yeah, what's
Uh,
going on?
False
They're
alarm.
perfect.
Everybody relax. Everybody, you can get out of your doorways. It's all good. But, if there is an actual emergency during the show, we will let you know.
So there's some good Dead stories. I want to talk about them.
Something. What, Mark? What did you send us? Oh, Dead and Mark sent some message. I can't read it. Wexler
There
Dead
we go.
and Co. Buy ticket in the pit. I don't know what that means, Mark.
Says vaccination proof to buy a ticket in the pit.
Oh, if you have vaccination, you can buy the pre-sale. They're doing vaccinated tickets.
For who?
Oh,
I'm guessing Dead and Company,
wow.
this is the Dead and Company.
So this latest text is what we're keeping to this program, right?
Yeah. So what we're gonna do coming up, we'll do Ripple on the show, right? We're just chatting about the Dead right now. How excited we are, and then we'll move into pretty much everything is the same except I switched out Scott's in my portion.
I'm at the end, right?
Yeah, correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Talk about the upcoming show. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And who we have, that's going to be perfect. I figured you should do that.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, it's rock and show. When was everybody's first Dead concert?
I saw him at Chula Vista, 1986.
I was there, baby.
Took
I
four
saw
hits, took 2 hits of 4-way window pane LSD.
Ooh, nice. That's good shit right there. That's old school. My first show was probably like 1979 or 80 at Irvine Meadows.
I came late to the table to the Dead. I didn't see them, I think, until late 80s in Vegas. And that was pretty wild.
I saw some Vegas shows. We're 1 minute. We're about 1 minute out. Mark,
Ed Norwood.
Yeah.
I saw the Dead
you want to start
One
pushing
day
live?
one night with Ornette Coleman.
3, 2, 1.
And we are live on Facebook and YouTube and all over the interwebs, all over the place. We're about 10 seconds away. We're going to kick this show off. Everybody ready?
Oh, we are ready.
Ready.
All right. Well,
Yes.
shoot, I'm ready. Why don't we let's do it. Here we go. Bear with me 1 sec. And
Good night.
And
here we
go.
go. and welcome to the Rock and Talk Show. This is show number 29. I'm the Moth Man. Hope everybody's doing great. Let me quickly introduce the crew. We've got the lovely Sheila Conlin from the Conlin Company over here.
Hello.
Hi, Sheila. We have Norwood Fisher, the one and only from Fishbone. Scotty Page, Pink Floyd, Toto, Supertramp, couple small bands. Stephen Perkins, Jane's Addiction, Porno for Pyros, and of course, last but certainly not least, Kenny Olson, Twisted Brown Trucker Band. How we doing? This is the bi-weekly show that dives deep into the entertainment industry, the business of it, the stories and culture, and everything in between. Welcome to the Rock and Talk Show. How we doing?
Good.
Awesome.
Good.
Got
We
some
should
good-
say we should first go around and say where everybody is because I think we have a few people traveling.
Oh,
We do.
Do we? Where?
Well, first, I want to say one thing to Dave Moss. That was a very, very clean intro, perfectly executed.
Good
Done
job,
very
Dave.
well. Very well.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate
I'm up
it.
in a hotel room.
Where are you,
I'm-
Kenny? You're in Michigan.
up
You're
here.
back.
I'm up in Vegas right now.
Ah, okay.
I'm in my
Well-
hotel room in Vegas, and it's
I'm
really
in the-
hot out.
I'm in the downstairs basement of my son's house and my grandson's house. I flew up to Portland on a surprise trip, surprised them, and I'm hanging out up in Portland.
Nice. Portland,
I'm in
Yeah.
LA, Los Angeles.
LA. Me too. Still home.
Norwood, are you home?
Santa Monica.
All right. All right.
Dude,
I
I
have
just
to
came
say
back
it
from
was-
Santa Monica. That traffic was brutal.
Oh
Took me
my
an
God.
hour and 40
Eastbound.
minutes.
Yeah.
Hour and 40 minutes.
Terrible.
Brutal. Crazy.
It was great though being there with you guys last week, and I finally get to
Yes.
play it again.
That was so fun. And I mean,
Fun.
since we're talking about it, I mean, you know, let's talk about it. What that was the first time we've all hung out together in about a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Since last July. I think last
Absolutely.
July
Well,
was our-
It felt like riding a bike. It's just like
You
riding
know
a bike. It just
you know,
felt-
playing the songs and going through the experience, that conversation with our instruments, that to me is like healing beyond belief. And then
It is.
also the familiar faces and talking in between the songs and just hanging out. That gives you a whole other sense of healing. Like you're getting back to your old life and you have a sense of purpose again. And we all look pretty good. We all didn't get knocked down, and we did, but we got back up. And I especially was talking to everybody on the pre-show, the rhythm section, playing with Norwood, and it never ceases to amaze me how fat you can lay back together, and how some musicians don't, some do. That's good. Either way is better or worse, doesn't matter. But what it feels like with Norwood, and then the guitar solos that Kenny were playing were like from heaven, and then of course Derek Day, who's like a lightning bolt. And Scott Page is like, he's the toro, he's the bull. He's like, you know, he'll go after if you're wearing something red, you're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I'm loud and boisterous, so that's for
It was
sure.
great.
What I would say for me personally, the next day, I noticed that I felt extremely good. And I don't know if it was like just sitting around and doing nothing for a year and a half, pretty much, and getting out. I mean, it was a fairly normal setting. Like most of the people there were vaccinated. It was outdoors. So it just felt normal and just like it just felt so good. And we were drinking margaritas and we had some good food, and you know, there might have been some cannabis going around. I'm just, you know, just saying. And man, the next day I just felt like vitalized and energized, and like my soul had been recharged. So it was an awesome day.
yeah,
was a
you
nice
heard,
setting,
you-
too.
Yeah, you heard live music and you were with everybody. That's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
great setting. And then the next day we got to play, Kenny and myself. Norwood was there, but he had to leave when we did that thing over in Malibu, that little sort of jam hangy thing we did over at Sue Wong's house. So we got
That was a
double
beautiful-
2 day worth of playing, and it was good.
It was good to come and hang with y'all, though.
Yeah,
Actually, that was really cool also, just because the vibe was just like that beach. I mean, holy crap. Like,
nice house, right? Nice place to live.
In both parties, think about it, the food spread. Like after we got done playing on Thursdays, the tacos, and then at Sue's party in Malibu.
I mean, Sue's party.
That food. I mean, I didn't even need to eat the following day. I was like, I had food stored up in me those 2 days. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a little slice of the rock show that we played?
I do, actually. Let's do it.
A quick visit and take a listen and a look.
I got it. Here we go. Let's do it. That was pretty darn good, boys.
Except you guys went to the change too soon for me. I didn't make the change. You guys went to the change. Kenny got the long version.
Yeah, come on.
Oops, my clam.
Damn guitar players.
You know what I told my wife? The best part of the show was seeing Scott at the end go, "My lips are fried."
Oh my God. My face hurt. My face. I hadn't played that much. It was dying. Oh, painful.
It's like when you're on mushrooms and you smile too much. That
Exactly. That was a fun night.
That was a fun night.
Listen, tonight, let's kind of shift gears because we have our guest who's waiting in the wings.
You know what, David? Can we can Perkins give a little shout out to last week's show or last 2 weeks show? And then, totally then bring in our special guest.
Hey, 2 weeks ago, we were blessed with two great musicians and souls. We talked about food. We talked about music. We talked about food. We talked about music. George Porter Jr. and Ivan Neville, thank you for joining us. You, when they showed the little slices of your video, it was the funkiest, most electric stuff I've seen and heard in years. Unbelievable. Thank you. There you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you can check it out. You can check the show out on YouTube.
Oh, that's right. You can. Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can visit that show anytime you like and get funky.
Yes. And since we're mentioning Facebook and YouTube, follow us on Facebook, like us and subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends to do the same. And we appreciate it. And we'll just keep trying to bring you the good content and the amazing historic legends of guests that we have on the show.
Yeah.
So tonight, we're pretty excited. I mean, I'm wearing my shirt in honor. One of the very first shows I ever saw was back in the day was the Grateful Dead. Like I saw the Grateful Dead at Irvine Meadows in 1979 or something like that for me. And we're very fortunate to have David Gans on the show with us tonight. David Gans is he's basically a journalist, a rock journalist. He's an amazing musician, and he is the founder and creator of the Grateful Dead Hour and author of several books, but playing in the band. Welcome to the show, David Gans. How are you?
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Hey, David.
Hello, everyone. You know, I I don't know any of you in real life, and I wasn't sure what the unifying thing was among the people. And then I saw this clip that you guys are a band. I'm being interviewed by a band. That's just so cool.
It's pretty cool. We're all really good friends, even first and foremost,
Yeah.
you know, and some of us go way back. Some of us don't go as way back, but yes, we're excited to have you on the show, David. So thanks for taking the time and joining us.
And David, I did find out you and I are both Scorpios.
It's not been much of a secret, really.
You and I are both fellow Scorpios. So
Can we be friends? I don't know what that means anymore.
I don't know. As long as you're not spiders and, you know, one bites the other and then, I got to kill each other or something like that. But Black Widows.
No, Scorpios rule. We're just creative, passionate people.
But real quickly, David, I don't know, you missed the intro, but just real quickly, I'll go around and I'll just introduce you to everybody since you haven't met. We've got Kenny Olson over here who played with Kid Rock and Twisted Brown Trucker Band. We've got Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction right here. We have Scott Page, who's played with Pink Floyd and Supertramp and Toto. And you met Norwood during our sound check. Norwood Fisher from Fishbone. And of course, Sheila Conlon, our co-executive producer here. And she has the Conlon Company and does a lot of stuff on TV. So,
And I work with Think. You know,
she manages Think. So there you go.
Besides those bands, we're Think X. So we're part of that's our little band. So you saw our little clip from our first gig in over a year. Unbelievable.
Got it. I have not played a gig. I have not played a gig in front of people since March 6th of last year.
Wow.
That was my first question. Was your first gig, or did you write or play music? What was it like in high school? What would you like to? Where'd you put your creative energy in high school?
You know, that's the perfect question to ask me at this moment, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I just did a improv session with my first cousin, a cellist from Stephen Katz, who I have not really spent much time with over the course of our lives. And we've never played music together. And we just got together in the studio for a just purely improvisational session. It was so great. And I felt this like instant connection to him. But it's the conversation we had about our upbringing. And we grew up a few hundred miles apart and then a few thousand miles apart. So we only really saw each other a little bit. But we had a grandmother who was a concert violinist.
Oh.
Wow.
I didn't have very much exposure to my grandmother. I grew up playing the clarinet. You know, I grew up in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, Northridge and Granada Hills. And I played the clarinet and in like a marching band and then in high school or junior high orchestras and stuff. But I didn't become a musician until I picked up a guitar and wrote a song.
Yeah.
That happened when I was 15 in San Jose. I had an older brother and a younger sister, both of whom sort of dabbled in the guitar. My brother had an actual guitar. He had a Gibson Blue Ridge. And I was, you know, we were like taking acid and, you know, farting around being teenagers in suburban high school. And at one point, he took a couple of my little teenage poems and set them to music and taught me the chords. And I think that's one of the most important things about me as a musician is that the very first thing I really did as a musician was in my own song.
That's cool.
And I've been writing my own songs ever since, and that's more than 50 years. And all the stuff that I've been through, I started playing every day. On April 4th of last year, I started doing a live show from my home every day.
Huh.
I've only missed about 10 of them since then.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I played 400 different songs without even trying to vary the set list. Just what I've done is just go back and revisit my entire performing career. When I was a kid, it was like Donovan and Jackson Brown and Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Beatles. And then I got into the hipper songwriters like Bob Dylan and John Prine and Steve Goodman and shit like that. So I started thinking as a songwriter more than as like a guitar player. I didn't go through that phase of learning every Clapton lick and you know, playing in a garage band and doing that stuff. I was doing my own music from the very beginning. And it really, I think, is sort of the most important thing about who I am as a musician. All the stuff I picked up along the way, I came back and revisited I just played fucking Moonshadow this afternoon, which is kind of
Yeah.
50 years I played that song, right? I stopped for 35 of them, but it's been fun to play it.
Oh, I thought you meant you played at Moon Shadows.
No. I played
Played
that song.
Moonshadow.
That was a song that I had learned when I first started playing guitar in the 70s. That was one of my first songs I learned. It was that song, and I still love that song.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I mean, I got turned on to the Grateful Dead in 1972, and that just completely changed my course immediately. I started getting more. Sorry?
I was going to say Europe 72. As a drummer, sans Mickey, but it's the drummer's choice of records. I mean, I can listen to every record, and I can enjoy Terrapin in so many levels.
That is the Grateful Dead right there. That's the one that I got on board with. My first show was March 5th of 72. That's the Grateful Dead that I first saw, that I totally dug. And that, you can imagine if you're sitting at home, if your songwriting agent wannabe guy sends you $1 to buy a copy of Give Me the Beat, Boys, and Free My Soul, and he said, I want you to write a bunch of songs like that for me, would you? And I was trying to think about how to become a commercial songwriter. I'm fucking 18 years old doing this, mind you. And then I take a heroic dose of LSD and I go to see the Grateful Dead, and their brand of songwriting is just so much more interesting than the stuff I was looking at, right? That's not to denigrate the songwriting that I was into. I mean, nothing wrong with Drift Away, right? But it's not what I want.
Music.
Sorry?
I say music's music, it's all taste. It's like ice cream. Scott Page, you talk about San Fernando Valley, his dad built and started, well, you can tell the story about the studio, but one of the great landmarks of LA in the Valley.
Yeah, that was Sound City. You probably remember the studio, Sound City. It was originally called the Vox Sound Lab.
Yeah.
My dad developed the first amplified instruments. He was the guy who took a hearing aid and used that as a microphone and stuck it into his clarinet, because he was a great clarinet player. So we started that, and then him along with Brad Plunkett, they developed the wah-wah pedal. And so here's a piece of information for you, Dave. I bet you this one you didn't know. The very first recording of the wah-wah was my dad, the very first commercial recording, and it was called the Wah-Wah Doozy, and it was done on a bassoon. So the very first thing, it was designed for wind instruments. It was never designed for guitar. Yeah, and I just actually found a whole box of all those original 45s of that just the other day.
So like you could do like you're doing on a trumpet, but you could do it with a clarinet?
Yeah, you can do it. So womp, 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 right? The choir. So that was the whole idea. The idea came from Clyde McCoy. The very first wah-wah pedal was called the Clyde McCoy wah-wah pedal. Clyde McCoy was the trumpet player, and he played with the mute, and he went womp, 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 womp. And that's where my dad told Brad, he said, how can I make my clarinet go womp, womp, womp like Clyde McCoy? So it was originally called the Clyde McCoy.
And it was a pedal?
It was a pedal. Yeah, it was actually the first was an organ pedal with a little potentiometer.
The potentiometer is like a tone control, so it moves the frequency up.
That's, all it is a filter you sweep, right? Once the guitar players got hold of it,
that was it. Yeah,
that's great. I didn't know that. I went to Sound City when in '77, very early in my music journalism career. I went down there to interview Bob Weir while he was working on his solo album with Keith Olsen.
Brother Keith, he was there for years.
That day too.
Yeah, he was originally one of the engineers because Sound City was the first room, and that was my dad's room where he developed all this stuff. It was Vox Island became Sound City, and then when it got so busy after Tom Skeeter and them took it over, and Keith was the engineer at the time at that thing. Then they built Goodnight LA, which was the second room, which was actually my dad's second room. When the one room got too busy, they built that for my dad's amplified orchestra, and then that became Goodnight LA. So yeah, those were some great times back in those days. Amazing.
I can't resist this story because I love to tell it every time. Me and Norwood grew up in LA. We could never afford that studio in Fishbone or James Addiction, so we renamed it Sound Shitty.
Total sour grapes, right?
What's that?
Sour grapes, right?
Well, it sounds shitty. We'll never record that. Sounds shitty, man.
So David, let's talk for a quick minute about let's get towards the Grateful Dead here. I mean, you started out as a musician, but then you became a journalist.
Yeah.
And you were writing for Rolling Stone.
I only ever had one little tiny piece in Rolling Stone, but I worked for a magazine that was run by Rolling Stone called Record Magazine. It existed from about 81 to 86. All I ever wanted to do was play music and write and stuff, but I wrote, short stories and stuff when I was a kid. So a friend of mine, there was an underground paper when I was in my brief career at San Jose State. There was an underground paper called The Red Eye. And I wrote record reviews for them, just, trying to get free records and stuff. And then later I started writing for BAM magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Which started in 76, and I became a contributor to BAM, again, mostly for concert tickets and records and stuff, right? But I wound up having a great education. I got to go interview Leo Fender and George Fullerton, and I interviewed Les Paul, and I spent a weekend with Ted Templeman, and I along the way I did stuff like my brother was a sound man in the sort of classic opera world, and I got to document Luciano Pavarotti's PA system at Madison Square Garden for recording engineer and producer and stuff. So I wound up just having this amazing time, and I interviewed people like Rick Ocasek and Tom Petty and Rod Stewart and shit. So I just had a great, and this was during the era when the label would fly you to Michigan to hang out, and interview Joe Walsh in a hotel room and stuff. Yeah. So I wound up sort of having a really nice time, and indeed getting a tremendous education in all of that. But my favorite thing all along was the Grateful Dead. So I would do Dead related stuff whenever I could.
Did you ever write with stuff with Relics magazine? That's our good friend.
Relics, oddly enough, yes, I did. I wrote for Relics. Contributed things like reviews, and like a review.
Pete Shapiro, who's a very close friend of mine, and worked, obviously with his history with the Dead, but he was on our show, one of the earlier shows too, which we did speak a little bit about some of the Dead shows that he was involved with, and we were talking about Relics magazine, and I figured you had written some stuff for that, which is awesome.
Oddly enough, I did a cover story on Ozzy Osbourne for Relics magazine.
Right on.
There was a time in the early 80s. This was long before the Wall Street people, and then Pete Shapiro took it over. This was when Les and Tony were running it, a couple of Deadheads, right? They were trying to get out of the just being a Grateful Dead rag thing. So they started trying to cover lots of other things. And that's how I wound up getting an assignment to go on the road with Ozzy Osbourne and do an interview with him for the cover of Relics.
How was that?
It was great. Michael Jensen was the publicist at the time, and it was the beginning of my friendship with him that has endured since then. This is January of 82. And I flew to Salt Lake, watched the show, watched the dwarf get hanged from the fucking scaffold, and the pound of calf's liver get launched into the audience on a catapult. And then I interviewed Ozzy overnight on the bus to Boulder. And in the morning when we got off the bus, Jensen took me over to G. Brown's house. G. Brown was the writer for the Denver Post. And I walked into the middle of they were watching some kind of super important football game. It might have even involved the 49ers. I don't know. But it was the beginning of a lifelong friendship with both of those guys. And it was also the weirdest damn thing. I mean, I interviewed Ozzy Osbourne, for God's sake. But when I came home from that trip, I went over to Front Street to photograph Bill Kreutzmann. He called me. He called me and asked me to take pictures of him playing a talking drum for magazine ads for the maker of the drum. So that was a really nice kind of little cultural left turn for me, was to come back from Ozzy Osbourne and then go spend a day with Kreutzmann in the talking.
Coming back from Ozzy Osbourne, that's an interesting word.
And that's one of the things.
A good title for a book.
Yeah,
what a character.
I know. I did his TV show, Battle for Ozfest on MTV.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. That was absolutely insane, crazy. But you know what? They're such nice people. I mean, I spent so much time in their home and actually going on the road when we picked the bands to do the battles. It was actually amazing. They were great.
What a crock of shit Sharon Osbourne's going through. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but she basically got ousted off of her TV show because she was talking about, she does a morning talk show with a couple women and
The View. She's on The View.
And she basically got kicked off the show because Pierce Morgan, they were talking about Meghan and Princess Meghan and
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Yeah.
And they were talking about, and Pierce Morgan was pretty critical. And all Sharon said on the show was that she's friends with Pierce and he's entitled to his opinion. And she got kicked off the show.
What is that telling you?
I mean, it's just, it's the cancel culture, but let's not go there. Let's go back to rock and roll.
There, but that's awful. That's awful. Sharon's doesn't even matter.
She's
Move
amazing.
on from that one.
You know what? I always use this thought. When Jerry Garcia flew into Woodstock, his quote was, "They usually don't have this many people together unless it's a battlefield. Look what music is doing." And it brought people together, and your writing brings people together. The band you saw play Come Together a half hour ago is a band that brings people together. And, what you just mentioned, David, is people are always going to pull apart, and people are always going to take advantage of that little space if someone else gave up and they grab it. But with music, we're flexible. It's air. We're not selling anything. People package it, and they sell it. But, look what happened from vinyl to CDs now to digital. Musicians don't get paid for music.
Welcome to my life.
When COVID restrictions go from North America to Southeast Asia to Europe, then we can go back to work. But North America's opening, but we'll get there. What I'm saying is our music is a vibration. Music is a vibration that moves air. A bass tone will move a piece of paper if it's too close. Rattle your house. It does. And so the healing of music and the words around it, like your words and books, that's the only thing we can do right now, Dave, is to battle that stuff, is make good art, better music, and bigger, safer parties.
And that's, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
I just was going to say I found a way to keep making music. And in a strange way, the pandemic has been amazingly good for my chops and for my musical life because I played every day. And you know what a working musician's life is. In between tours, you might not pick up your instrument for a week or so, or even longer, right? And so I have played more in the last 16 months than I have in the last 30 years, really, just in the terms of number of hours played. And more importantly, I've found a way to thrive creatively and a little bit materially in this time when everything was completely shut down. And I'm just incredibly lucky to have the wherewithal to do it, because everything I do doesn't pay as well as it used to, as all of you know. Radio, writing books, making music, right? But somehow I've managed to squeak through doing all of those things and in a way that I don't think directly harms anyone, which makes me fairly proud. But to have found a way to make up some of the lost income, but more importantly to improve myself as a musician in the middle of all this. I almost, it's like I've been playing sitting down and doing this incredible mix of tunes every day for more than a year. And then my life, if I go back on the road, will be playing 45-minute sets to largely deadhead audiences and rotating among the same 20 or so songs with the occasional exception. And I'm kind of enjoying this in a way that I'm, makes me a little bit less thrilled about going back to that.
Well, you know what I miss too, though? Obviously the music industry has changed so much where people don't see that artifact of albums and see who played on what. And, I grew up in the Detroit area, right around the corner from the Cream magazine, office and stuff. So I grew up, reading all this stuff, and people like you that, would inform us, like, for example, the other day I heard Teach, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and someone said, that's such a beautiful pedal steel solo. And I was like, yeah, it's Jerry Garcia. And they're like, what? And people don't know that stuff nowadays. Like Yorm and I always thought, Yorm is an old buddy of mine. And the stuff that he's played on and stuff, and people don't, these younger kids, they don't get informed about this stuff, and it's like, there are these legends, and it's like, you just want, I don't know, it's not the same. And it kind of sucks that people don't actually get to pick up an artifact and read it, and pay attention.
True. I agree. And I miss all that stuff, especially having been a journalist in a time when music got serious journalism.
Yeah.
And now I'm a musician looking for a serious journalist to take me seriously and do something with it. But where would it be published? The whole world that you and I are talking about right now doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. It's frustrating.
And it's like I'm having another part of the nice thing I'm dealing with my daily thing is that I have a group of like 36 regulars who come every day, and they formed a community around this. And I have this, I feel so, I connected with them. They send me requests every morning, and we interact and stuff. And I've gotten notes from total strangers. One day a woman wrote to me and said, thank you for your set today. My special needs child sat and smiled for a solid hour, and that's worth more than I have.
Oh,
wow.
That's right on.
That's awesome.
That's worth this. Yeah.
Hey, David, I'm curious as to did your first real interaction with the band members of the Grateful Dead, was that through journalism, or was it as a fan that stumbled backstage?
No, I never did anything like that as a fan.
Okay.
I was a timid kid, I never would have done anything like that. But my journalism, as soon as I joined the crew at BAM, they were already, they had started a regular column. There was enough going on in the Grateful Dead culture that they had a monthly column called Dead Ahead. And they would gather the news of this community and what band members were doing and things like that. Because remember, BAM started sort of during the hiatus of the Grateful Dead. So the coming back together of the Grateful Dead was huge news right around the time that BAM was getting rolling. And so the Grateful Dead, it felt like that. I think they started this feature because the Grateful Dead already had plenty of gravity around them in the Bay Area. And then a month or two into it, they asked me to take responsibility for it. So my first direct interaction, I think, was a phone interview with Mickey Hart when he was in the hospital after he broke his collarbone. That would have been in the summer of '77.
Wow. Talk for a minute, David. I would love to hear, I've been following the Dead my whole life, basically, and I'm intimate with their music. And I've seen, not as many shows as some Deadheads have seen, but, I've seen over 50 shows, but that's because I don't just see the Grateful Dead. Talk about, for those that aren't familiar with the Grateful Dead, and it's hard to believe there's anyone, but there really are a lot of people that didn't ever quite get it and don't get it. I would love to hear your description of the Dead, because they're just so innovative, so unique. They did so many things that no other band had ever done. Give us your intro to the Dead.
Well, needless to say, I've been fashioning that phrase for my entire adult life. But lately I've been referring to them as literate, improvisational, eclectic folk rock.
Yeah.
Because they brought music in from a lot of sources and combined it with a collection of really, really, really good original songs from 2.5 really, really good writers. And I'm only giving Phil Lesh half a credit because he didn't write that many songs. The quality of the songs are great, but
Box of Rain, baby.
Right. Box of Rain and Dainu. But the other two guys really delivered the goods for years and years and years. And so the thing about the Grateful Dead was that they combined really, really good original songwriting, a fierce devotion to variety in their sources of songs that they covered and turned into their own songs, and they stitched it all together with a conversational form of collective improvisation that intrigued the daylights out of people like me, such that we'd go back and see them show after show after show, because they never played it the same way twice. And look, also, you guys will appreciate this particular phrase. I think they brought the bar band ethos, like, bands that polish up a show and then they play the show, and bands that get like the Eagles, they play their exact record on stage every time, right? That's their thing. This is the inverse of that. This is a bar band that kept that ethos of self-indulgent, doing this for the love of it, brought it all the way up to stadiums full of 90,000 people, and got away with playing like, 20-minute blasts of completely improvised, abstract music in front of more people in one afternoon than Coltrane played for in his whole life.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that this stat is true anymore, but probably back in the early 2000s, they had done more live shows than any other band in existence. And I don't know if that's a fact or if there was any
in existence.
I don't know. There might be a band in Las Vegas that beat them.
That's true.
It could be. But you know what? The thing about the Dead was when you showed up, some people got this experience. I know I did many times. You show up at 2 in the afternoon. The first set's not until 7 p.m. But you get there at 2, and you walk around that parking lot. You make friends. You get weird. You go back and forth. You discover people. You meet people. You get excited about everything. And it's only 3 o'clock. It's only been an hour. It's been like another 4 or 5 hours.
Find your drugs right, Stephen.
And the acid's just kicking in. Yeah, exactly.
It's the best afternoon, and you get a whole weekend of that. And
then some beautiful young girl walks by with a bowl of ganja goo balls, and it's just like, oh, let's try one of those. And then you take it to the next level, and it's like, ah.
I've been lucky. I've seen Carlos Santana. I've seen Ornette Coleman. I've seen Branford Marsalis. I've seen Alatunji, Baba Alatunji. I've seen these people get on stage with the Dead.
Yeah.
And that was usually driven by one or two members, Jerry or Mickey. And these guys were on stage. They took the show, and they took Jerry's playing to another level. I've seen the Dead. We all know he's touched. But when Ornette Coleman was next to him,
I love that.
Get it.
Yeah, Ornette was actually
probably them. They kept trying to sort of bring it back down, and he kept shoving them further out. That was a really nice long ass version of the other one, thanks to him.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of not too long ago playing with George Porter Jr. and Steve
Timmock,
and then the keyboard player. I can't remember. We did this thing called Dead in the Dome, and so I had no idea. So they called me up and they said, "Hey, we're going to do this thing called Infrared and Roses, right?"
Yeah.
And so
Bob Braylow?
Yeah, huh?
Was Bob Braylow part of it?
Yes, Bob was part of it.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that guy.
So it was so funny because I thought, okay, wasn't familiar with that record, so I brought it up and I put it on, and I didn't know what to learn because it was
nothing to learn from that.
There's nothing to learn. I had more fun on that gig because I got to play Ornette Coleman all night long.
Yeah.
Take it wherever I wanted to take it. It was so much fun.
That's you can't rehearse for it. It's conversational music. Yeah. To get back to what I started, I mentioned earlier that I had this experience with my cousin, and you just sit down and it's like you're having a conversation. And you make a musical statement and the other guy either answers it or harmonizes it or contradicts it or whatever. And you talk back to him. And the next thing you know, you're building, I call that, another phrase that I use for Grateful Dead music is spontaneous midair architecture.
Well, there you go.
Everybody is contributing little structural bits to it. And if you're standing back from it in the audience, you're hearing this amazing music being made that each individual part might be sort of incomprehensible, but together it locks together into that thing.
How about covers, Dave? Who do you have a favorite Grateful Dead song that's been covered by somebody else? And if so, what would that be?
Oh man, that has become a thing. There was a time when it was hard to find them, as remember the dedicated record was a fairly new idea back in '89, right? And the ripple from Jane's Addiction was very.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you know what, I'm glad that you mentioned that, and that was not planned. If you're out there watching, that was perfectly placed. I have a little clip of Jane's Addiction doing their version of Ripple. Perk, you want to set it up?
Yeah, give me a little story here. My brother was a big Deadhead. He passed away, but at the time, he inspired me and Perry to go with Ripple. Navarro and I were big Deadheads. Perry is a head, period, a crazy head. And we got to record at the Kinks studio in England. It was the last song Jane's ever did with the original bass player. So it's Jane's Addiction doing Ripple at Ray Davies' studio. Last time we ever played with Eric. Inspired by my brother, who passed away just a year later. And Jerry Garcia reviewed the record, and he said, by far, the highlight is Jane's Addiction. I almost fell out of my chair. Me and my brother were dancing the tango for like a half hour. He heard it. He likes it. He likes it. And since then, I've been friends with Mickey and Billy, Phil and Bobby, and Jerry I never got to meet. But thanks, man. That's my setup. Ripple.
That's
well,
great.
Let's dedicate this to your bro right now.
Yeah.
Here it is on the Rock and Talk Show.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Perkins.
I love the session photos.
I went out and bought that because you guys, I heard about that dedicated album, and that was obviously, track drove me to go get it. But also, there's so many great songs on that album. Like Lyle Lovett doing "Friend of the Devil."
Yeah,
that's
but that's become. It turns out that songbook is like hugely popular, and nowadays there's entire bands. There's a band based up here in the Bay Area called Wake the Dead, and it's all like big time players in the Celtic music world. And they got together and made a record of Grateful Dead songs, and they sort of did them in medleys with jigs and reels and stuff, instrumentals. It's called Wake the Dead, and they've made like 7 or 8 records in the last 20 years since. Geez,
you know what I found fascinating about all those about the Dead and stuff is because I came out, I was heavy in the tech scene. I don't know if you remember the Digital Be-ins.
Yes, vaguely.
Mickey Hart used to come, and all the Dead used to come, and I was always fascinated because they were so tight with the technology community. And actually, Roger McNamee, who you might know, has a band called Moon Alice, right? And they do all Grateful Dead, but it's so interesting that all the tech guys, when you think of the Dead, it's so raw and so opposite of ones and zeros in technology. It's just
that's whatever your image of them. They were always on top of the tech. If there's a book Blair Jackson wrote a book called Grateful Dead Gear that sort of tracked their technological changes, and somebody needs to do a serious history of the Grateful Dead's developments in audio, in sound system technology, because those
The
guys
wall of sound.
fostered
I mean,
and
the
provided
wall
a
of sound, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. It was just fascinating because when you think of the music, it's more, like you said, it's more earthy, it's stuff. But then they were so technological.
They were all on top of it, and
Yeah.
they were early adopters too. I remember when Jerry had a Hex pickup bolted onto a Stratocaster to start experimenting with MIDI sounds. That's where Bob Braylove entered their world. Bob was working for Stevie Wonder.
Oh, wow.
And he met Merle Saunders at a Grammys prep.
That's
And
cool.
Merle was just, this is 1985. Merle was just starting to be the music supervisor for the new Twilight Zone, which was produced by Phil DeGuerre, who's an old friend of the Grateful Dead as well. So Phil, that's how the Dead came to do the theme music for the reboot of the Twilight Zone, because Merle was the music supervisor. But Braylove, who had been like doing keyboard stuff for Stevie Wonder, came up to the Bay Area to work with Merle and wound up signing on with the Dead as their digital guy. So he supervised the MIDIization of the entire band and would set up sounds and stuff. He made sounds for all of them, and Vince Welnick in particular. But that's how Jerry had this great sound. I thought it was like hitting a parking meter with a sledgehammer. And,
yeah, wild. Yep.
Shit,
you know
like
what? It was cool, man. Where the Dead, they came out of such a great scene, and of course the world changed so much. But think about all the great artists besides musicians. You got Bill Graham, Tim Leary, the Dead, of course, and then everything else that, even Sly Stone, Carlos Santana, Sly Stone, Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver. There was so much going on. A lot of them turned into movie makers and novelists and journalists, and it was a wave of creative freaks, man, and it changed the world.
There's a book. John Markoff wrote a book called "What the Dormouse Said." It's basically a history of psychedelics in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, great.
Well, and speaking of which, the folklore that the internet as we know it was envisioned by guys that work for the Grateful Dead on a shit ton of LSD. What do you do you know of that?
I think that's a bit of an urban legend. But,
that's an urban legend. Okay.
There are and were a lot of deadheads in that world, and I got to meet some of them. I've been part of an online community called The Well that was a very early online community. It still exists, and I'm still there. And Barlow was on there, and a lot of stuff was going on. We got hacked by Kevin Mitnick and all this other shit. So the Grateful Dead scene and the Silicon Valley, or the kind of smart drug world, kind of overlapped in the person of John Perry Barlow in particular. But I also, they all went down to do Jaron Lanier's thing when VR was a brand new deal. Right?
David,
everybody was always interested in the new thing, and their music followed the tech too. They would improve, that's why they were there with the MIDI as soon as it was available. So they were no strangers to technology. The fact that they continued to be so funky in the middle of it,
Did you ever meet or get to know Howard Wales?
I did. I met Howard a few times, and I did an interview with him once a couple of years before he passed. And I got to hear him play a few times.
Howard was a dear friend of mine. I knew him very, very, very well. Had some funny stories, which I told on another show, but just curious if you met him. He was a real interesting guy. Did he have his OCD when you met him? Did he shake your hand?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
We met. It was at that house. His friend, what's that guy's name that was sort of his handler? I met at this guy's house.
For those that don't know, Howard Wales did a record with Jerry Garcia back in the day called Hooterall, and it was just a improvisational instrumental jam. Howard played.
I can't remember the guys.
Out there.
Yeah, very out there.
I think I remember the friend's name. The friend was the devil. He's a friend of mine.
Howard, the last
Exactly.
few years, Howard had a band with Terry Haggerty and Kevin Hayes the last few years, and they came in and played on my KPFA fundraiser a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And Haggerty and Howard together was just amazing. You know Terry Haggerty, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, Sons of Chaplain, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, Bill. Yeah.
So
That was a
actually,
great.
Bill's son Will is in that video with that we played at the beginning. He's in the band Think with.
Right.
Yeah, Bill Champlin, I just have to say, is probably one of my all-time biggest heroes. I mean, you talk about an incredible musician and singer, and the Sons of Chaplain was just such a great band back in the day, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy, but it was funny when you were talking about, because the tech, that's how I really learned about the Grateful Dead, was through technology. Because, you know, my background is I came out of tech, I started companies, and my biggest claim to fame that I'm so proud of is I directed and produced, along with another gentleman, the world's first interactive cartoon back in those days. So I would always see the Dead at all the trade shows. They were always brought into all these things. They were part of that.
Go to the Hackers Conference?
I went to different kinds. I don't remember if I went to so many conferences.
I went to one Hackers Conference back in the late or 80s or maybe early 90s. That was like the guys that wound up being Pixar showed their very first stuff there. I saw like Luxo Jr. and shit. It was like the very beginning of that. It was mind-blowing stuff in its time. And you were doing that?
Oh, that's all I did. Yeah, it was Seventh Level with my company.
What do you mean by interactive?
Huh?
What do you mean by interactive cartoon?
Well, it was the first time where you actually clicked on something on a screen and something happened, right? So you could control the storyline basically by your activities, more game-like, right? That kind of stuff. But that was early, because we were doing it on 386, 25 megahertz Windows machines, right? So it was crazy time. So it was very inventive in those days, right? You know,
that was like fun. Then people started using HyperCard for that back in the early Macintosh days.
Oh yeah,
people would make interactive storytelling through HyperCard.
Absolutely, HyperCard was the thing in those days.
Yeah,
it was crazy. And I was hanging out with and Timothy Leary was always at those things. So we used to hang with Timothy all the time. All those guys, right? So that was my introduction to the Grateful Dead.
I once went to a. I try to remember the exact circumstance, but there was a car arrived at this party that had John Perry Barlow, Timothy Leary, and Bill Walton in it. Yeah. And it reminded me of that Little Feat record cover on, Feats Don't Fail Me Now. What's it? George Washington and Marilyn Monroe and who? I just thought, how cool is that? Bill fucking
in the old 1950 Chevy with the lightning bolt coming down through it.
Glenn Howard's. We were meeting at Glenn Howard's place. Do you know who that guy is? The super mega record collector guy?
Yeah. Glenn.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's up in Santa Cruz now, but he had a place in LA. This was like, I remember now, this was probably 1990 after the Grateful Dead in Dominguez Hills.
Wow.
Went out to the valley to his place, and that's where the car with Leary and Walton and Barlow. I just thought, well, that's a great looking trio right there.
Amazing.
Yeah, boy.
Sadly, we are getting down to it. We have about 5 to 7 minutes left of the show, and we haven't even talked about the Grateful Dead hour yet.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
We've spent an hour not talking about the hour.
Well, one thing real quick about Bill Walton. When you go to a show, if it's a Jimmy Kimmel TV filming, or if it's at Soldier Field, or maybe Dubai, it's not a show if Walton's not there.
Exactly.
Well, it's like it's confusing. If you're at a Dead show, you don't see him. You're lost. Okay, back to you, Dave.
Just quickly give us like the cliff notes on. I mean, there's so much to talk about the Grateful Dead hour. How many shows have you done on the Grateful Dead hour? And
I just finished producing program number 1704, but that doesn't tell the whole story because there were 55 more under a different name, and then an unknown exactly number from before I started syndicating them at all. The Grateful Dead hour began on KFOG as the KFOG Deadhead Hour in November of 84. It was a guy named Dave Logan who later became a big shot in the Superstars 2 format with Lee Abrams. Logan was the ED there, and he invented this. It was a strip of specialty shows, like a New Age show, a jazz show, a reggae show, the Grateful Dead, and I forget what the other one was. Huh. So M. Dung was the host of it, and he was like the morning drive guy. So he was kind of like super overworked already. Plus, he had his own other specialty show. So me and another couple of guys were like bringing him tapes. And then I did a guest appearance to promote my book, Playing in the Band, when it came out. And I produced a little documentary. There's a song called Greatest Story Ever Told that has a really interesting history that I won't get into now. But I produced a little documentary because I had tape from Hunter, Mickey Hart, and Bob Weir talking about composing this song. And Mickey gave me like the stems from the multi-track, which was the nicest thing he ever did for anybody in his whole life. So I went on the air and I did my first guest appearance, and I played some Grateful Dead rarities and stuff. And I had a fun time doing it. And so I joined the little group of people that were helping M with the show. And then when the book came out, the program director said, wait a minute, this guy's an expert on the subject and he's having a great time doing this. They asked me to take over responsibility for the show. And the morning drive jock was happy to let go of it because he had to be up at 4 o'clock every morning, right?
Right.
So I took over doing the Deadhead Hour for the fun of it. And I was still freelancing for music magazines and stuff, but I was just doing an hour of Dead music and interviews and stuff. And I started getting calls. WHCN in Hartford called and said, can we carry your show? So I don't know. A classic rock station in San Diego called. And then WNEW FM called. And they said, we are interested in carrying your Deadhead Hour. And so I went to John McIntyre, one of the Dead's managers, who was sympathetic. And I explained what was going on. And he said, well, let's take it to the band. So I wrote up a little proposal, I guess, and I sat in front of the kangaroo court there and told them what was going on. And they said, go for it. You know,
what's so cool about those guys? I mean, you think about it, they really, not only were they in technology, they basically reshaped the music freaking scene of community and how they did their business. They changed the entire business models. Like
well, they did it of necessity, and the rest of the music business has come around to it now because nobody makes any money from records anymore. You have to go out and play live, and the Grateful Dead always made their money playing live and did the other stuff, you know, in hopes. Right. Now everybody has to.
But they never
set up
a miking section for people to get live bootlegs. They let people set up and do a miking section to record their shows.
Please steal my media.
No, well, they first of all, they couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And secondly, they knew that it had been going on for years and had not significantly harmed their business. I was doing reporting in the music business. Remember the home taping is killing music bullshit of 1982?
Yep.
I did some reporting on that. I was writing for Record Magazine at the time. And that was all, you know, the whole record industry, they got the laws changed so they get a freaking royalty on blank tape and stuff like that, you know. Well, the Grateful Dead were completely in their own universe, apart from all of that shit. And they recognized that this stuff wasn't harming them. It was a calling card. It was an ad for them. And same reason they embraced what I was doing. They realized that the word of mouth was the best.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you right now, with NFTs coming out, with I don't know if you're following what's happening about NFTs, that completely flips the whole game on everything. And for what the Dead and all these people are doing, it's a great new scene for the artist, you know.
I can't even, I have no idea what that is.
Oh, well, then you got to watch
our next show.
Next,
Kenny, ask your question, and we've got to, then I'm going to throw it to Norwood to thank our sponsors or Sheila.
Throw it to me first, then Norwood, then Scott.
And then Dave, Olson. you're gonna close us out, Dave.
I just had something simple to say. I was going to be so grateful to the Grateful Dead for the culture that they created and that paved the road for so many bands, you know, and artists like, you know, Warren Haynes or John Fair, Derek Trucks, Yorma Hot Tuna. This whole culture, no other band has ever done that. Has created a whole fan base scene that is going, and it's just, you know, amazing that you know, where that started, and it just want to throw mad props to that.
Oh, that's amazing. So this was a great show, everyone. Thank you to all of our fans out there for joining, and please check us out, the Rock and Talk Show, on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Like our channel, like everything, subscribe. And again, thank you so much, David Gans, for being part of our show. Don't go away. We're going to do our closeout, and then David's going to bring you back in. But I'm going to turn over right now to Norwood Fisher and
Am I
then
playing
Kenny
a song
Olson.
when we're done?
What,
Yeah,
honey?
you're going to be playing.
Okay, I'll get ready to play.
Yes.
All right,
So
excellent.
get ready.
Yep, and thank you. We got some wonderful sponsors. Randy Fuchs at Artist Relations, and he has actually connected us with these fine microphones. We got to thank Lewitt Microphones and IK Multimedia, which gives us the iRigs and whatnot to connect us to the internet and allow you to hear it. And TPI Films, FTE, which is From the Earth. Don't forget
Thank you.
It's all from the earth. And
Kenny?
soon you'll find us on the C Network Suite.
There you go.
Network.
C-Suite Network.
Right.
C-Suite Network, yeah.
It's all
Yeah,
right.
we must give special thanks to our special people behind the scenes, our producer director, Eric Loy, assistant producer and creative director, Mark Amontato, and our editor, Graham Cooper. Thank you.
Yep, and I get to talk about our next show coming up on the 27th is where we're going to talk about what I was just mentioning to David was NFTs, which I truly believe is probably the most powerful thing that's happened for the creator, the artist. It's really a new form of publishing. It's going to revolutionize everything. And we've got to have a great show. We got the fantastic Jim Evans, one of the great poster and of album cover designers of all time. I mean,
Taz.
He did Jane's Addiction, and we're going to talk about the NFT that's going on with him right now. You know, they're doing one with him and Navarro, which you're part of and stuff. And then we also have Jared Fink, who's coming on, better known as Blazar, who is a master at this stuff, knows it very well. We're going to get a whole lesson and learn a lot about what's going on. And then we've got Mr. Afro Man coming on. If you remember him from back in the day, he's coming on. So we're going to have a very interesting show next time. It'll be very educational. It's going to be very musical, and it will be a lot of fun, just like this one with David Gans.
Awesome. And on that note,
bands like Fish and all those other bands out there, forgot to mention Trey and the boys too for keeping the spirit alive.
Yep.
And on that note, David, I'm going to hand it off to you to let you kind of close us out here and give us a song.
Sing along, everybody. You know this one.
Okay.
Fare you well, my honey. Fare you well, my only true one. All the birds that were singing are flown. Except you alone. Gonna leave this broke down house on my hands and my knees. I will go, make myself a bed by the waterside. In my time, I will roll in a bed by the waterside. I will lay my head, listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. River gonna take me, sing me sweet and sleepy. Sing me It's a far gone lullaby sung many years ago. Mama, mama, many worlds I've come since I first left home. Going home by the waterside, I will rest my bones. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. On a plant, a weeping willow by the bank's green edge, it will grow. Sing a lullaby beside the water. Lovers come and go, the river roll. Fare you well, I love you more than words can tell. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. Fare you well, I love you more than words can tell. Listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul. Why don't you listen to the river sing sweet songs to rock my soul?
Beautiful. Probably one of my all-time favorite Dead songs. Like, I would just wait for them to end the show with that song always.
Thank you so much.
That was great.
Thank you for having me.
David, don't leave. Stay with us. We're going to close the show out real quick, but don't leave. And there you have it. Until next time, our NFT show. We'll see you in